I think these are the right slides. I had this when I went to Germany. Yeah, this is it. So this was presented at ETH Berlin. I'll give an update about the tornado cache case and stuff. Why do I have a picture of this general on the screen? This guy, Truppenführung. How many of you guys read the German military doctrine for fun? One guy. Everybody follow that guy around. Why the German military doctrine? It's actually pretty interesting. The first line in the whole doctrine is this line. It says, "The conduct of war is an art depending upon free, creative activity, scientifically grounded. It makes the highest demands on the personality." The German military doctrine is unique because it actually promoted the use of like intents, actually. You're supposed to communicate your intention, and then your subordinate officers would carry it out. And it actually became the template for almost all military doctrines to date. And the interesting thing about the guy who wrote it is that he also tried to assassinate Hitler and died trying. The movie Valkyrie is roughly based on this. And why am I putting this up? It's because sometimes the people who care about their countries and their people the most are also the people who take matters into their own hands and try to fix the problems that they observe themselves. And we should think about this. And so privacy is because privacy is normal. Full surveillance CBDCs are coming. Governments abuse their power all the time. This is a little quote tweet from somebody who talked about how, and I've given this talk in Amsterdam, the Dutch, the place that Alexei's trial was conducted, were historically had the highest casualty rate during the Holocaust because they were really good at KYC during World War II. So the Germans, when they took over the Dutch KYC systems, were thrilled to discover that they could figure out where all the Jews were really easily and then go hunt them all down. And so we don't often think about how our systems are going to get abused by people who might not have the best intentions at heart when we design them. Crypto people try and think about this, and I think we should continue to keep thinking about this. This is going to be a abridged version of this talk because this is a 25-minute talk. I'm not going to get through all of it. The important parts are that, raise your hand if you know what tornado cache is. Let me get a sense of this. Raise your hand if you know about the legal action against tornado cache. Keep your hand up. Okay, raise your hand if you know about the case in the Netherlands. All right. Yeah, so most of you guys are on the same page. So what happened with Alexei? The update here is that he was found guilty, and he got 64 months. Minus the time that he has already served. And so now there's an appeal process that we are filing with lawyers and brought on additional legal counsel to help him try to get out of this sentence. We don't believe that this sentence was justified. Some of the things that the prosecution brought up in court was they said that they acknowledged that he couldn't have stopped anything. They said, due to the virtue of how the system works, it's impossible to make the user interface accessible. Yes, we agree. We made the same point. They also acknowledged that they didn't have any power over the funds. It's a non-custodial system. They can't freeze anybody's funds. They can't prevent anybody from using it. But they also claimed that they should have known better, and that if it was conceivable at the outset that it could have potentially been used for crime, then they shouldn't have built it in the first place. And so they said this: if the defendant had wanted to have the possibility to take action against abuse, then he should have built it in, but he did not, and therefore he was responsible for all of the criminal use of the protocol. Most reasonable people find this somewhat absurd. They're like, I made a hammer. Somebody bashed someone in the head with it. Clearly not the intended use of the hammer. But because I could have conceived somebody bashing somebody in the head with it, and I didn't, you get where I'm going with this. Many people came out in protest to this. They said they thought it was didn't make sense to them. Yeah, this is them saying that they could have, prevented it. They should have known better. Taylor Monahan, same thing. These are people who came out in protest in support of Alexei, which I'm really happy about. Maybe somebody's here from that. These signs say open source is not a crime, privacy is not a crime. One of those says, would you arrest a gun maker for facilitating a public shooting? It's not the best argument that I really want to lean on, but it does make the point that the liability of producing weapons, even ones based for self-defense, they're not liable for the downstream uses of those weapons for self-defense. And so why did Tornado Cash exist? It was for personal privacy. And people abused it, and the government threw the devs in jail. So this is just a funny thing I threw in there. There's people actually helping ISIS that got less time than Alexei did. Absurd. So what's going on with Alexei? We're negotiating the bail amount. We've submitted the appeal, and pending a successful appeal, we will argue the case again in court. Roman Storm's case is still ongoing. It's still scheduled for September. This is explaining what happened to Roman, which is he was arrested at his house at gunpoint. Which is, the director said we should remind criminal organizations everywhere that they are neither unstoppable nor anonymous. Blah blah blah. It's like Roman Storm was cooperating with the investigation. Is the most silly part of this. You could have just called him and be like, "Hello, please come to the police station." He would have continued to cooperate with the investigation. But yeah, he's charged with conspiracy to commit money laundering, violate U.S. sanctions, operate an unlicensed money transmitter. Total charges can add up to 45 years in prison. He was released on bail, pled not guilty. His trial is on September 23rd. So Edward Snowden was kind enough to share our, this is Peter Valkenburg, sorry. Peter Valkenburg at least has a ray of hope here, and the ray of hope is that maybe some of the charges against Alexei and the way that the court in the Netherlands went along with it in terms of having negligence be the standard for what the, determines liability, doesn't necessarily apply in the United States, which is beneficial for Roman. There's amicus briefs that were filed on behalf of the cases. One was filed by Coin Center. They're talking about the constitutional limitations of the sanctions laws. Another one is filed by the Blockchain Association. This one talks about pleading the facts in the money services business charge. Another one is filed by the DeFi Education Fund. Fortunately, they all tackle the different charges that Roman Storm was accused of violating, and so we can try to educate the regulators through this means. I'm grateful for all those orgs. The Department of Justice said they basically ignored the FinCEN guidance that says that you have to accept and transmit money, which implies custody. And they said these guys help launder funds, and so we don't care about FinCEN's guidance. We're going to accuse them anyway of operating an unlicensed money transmitter. So if you have the means and you're inclined to do so, we're still collecting money to pay for their legal defenses. We emptied Moloch DAO. Several other DAOs have donated. Gnosis donated. Metacartel donated. Nouns DAO donated a lot. So check it out on the Twitter is Free Alexei Roman. And there's a Juicebox fundraiser as well where they're selling NFTs. And this is a list of some of the donors. Matter Labs, Nouns DAO, Alchemix DAO, Metacartel, JustPow, Vitalik, Koppelman. 800 people donated. We're grateful for everybody who did. There's a section, I have 20 seconds left, so I'm going to skip through some of this. This is why they deserve our support, and there's a couple of reasons. They built the compliance tool themselves that the St. Louis Federal Reserve Bank actually recommended to be used. They couldn't have stopped anything. The ETH in Tornado Cash went up after they're all in prison. It's kind of silly. I'm going to die. This thing is still going to work. And then this is like basically every other time that this kind of thing happens, the government just fines the banks. And in our case, they crucified the devs. It's not really fair. So yeah, HSBC money launders for the cartels. Nothing happens to anybody, you know. There's a manifesto here for Nouns DAO, but I'm out of time, so I'm just going to skip forward. This is how, you know, privacy pools works, but I'm going to skip ahead of this. We're trying to build a narrative of keeping the terrorists out of privacy so that we can demonstrate that there is such thing as privacy for the good guys. Because the court, the judges in the Netherlands, and as part of the verdict of Alexi's case, said there's no legitimate use for Tornado Cash. I think that's completely absurd because I was using it for payroll, Vitalik's using it to donate to Ukraine, so the Russians wouldn't figure out how much money he's donating to Ukraine. These are all good use cases as far as I'm concerned, so I think that people should be allowed to do this, and we can iterate basically on the compliance tool that the Tornado Cash team built themselves in order to publicly prove that we're not the terrorists when we use it, and that's the goal of privacy pools. Check our company, zeroexpo.io, new protocol coming soon. But long story short, skip through this stuff. Prometheus. So the zero knowledge proof system that the Tornado Cash team built and shipped on Ethereum was the second ever deployment of zero knowledge proofs in history. And so I think putting the devs in chains for eternity, feeding their guts to the eagles, will not put out the fire of zero knowledge proofs. The future that we all want depends on zero knowledge proofs for things like privacy. We want freedom from central bank digital currencies, for example, that have a giant honeypot of everybody's financial data and make money that expires and crazy things like that. We want blockchain democracy now. Andrew Yang, like 4 years ago at ETH Denver, was like, we're going to put voting on the blockchain. And everybody who knew what they were talking about was like, no, definitely don't do that. But actually using zero knowledge proofs in ways of allowing people to vote that protects their privacy could be a better system than we have today for digital democracy. I think that's important. And things like Tornado Cash are just like the prototype of all of these systems. So in this, in the mythology, the Prometheus is actually saved by Hercules, and so maybe we can all be Hercules and save our friends who shipped the zero knowledge proofs. So please, if you have the means, follow Free Alexei Roman and donate to their legal defense fund. Thank you all for your time.